Welcome back to Switched to Linux. Well, today I want to do another brief outdoor walk. Obviously, this isn't a computer screen, but we had a fascinating discussion show up on the Matrix server the other day, and I thought it was worth a full video kind of talking about it here. A little Linux philosophy type video, as it were. And so this has occurred again over on the Matrix server. If you're not over there, head on over to the website at switchedtolinux.com and head on over to the very bottom of the page there. You'll find all the links to the video channels and social media and stuff. You'll go ahead and find the Matrix channel linked down there. I'm not certain if we are on the public directory yet. I don't know. But anyway, the topic of the subject was, should we be concerned about the background views of the software developers for the software that we use? Of course, we had a couple videos recently. We talked, one of them did not get released on YouTube. It was slightly too spicy, so it was a alt-tech exclusive. And we talked about OpenSUSE and their approach. There are actual board members actually coming out and actually calling specifically conservatives, quote, rotten flesh that should be banned from the internet. True story. So we went ahead and put that over on the alt tech, but we also had the one that did land on YouTube was Elementary OS. Of course, now the idea is Elementary OS, we knew the politics of them. OpenSUSE, we knew the politics of them. A lot of us didn't really care until they started bringing a lot of these politics into the conversation as part of their distro themselves. And so it begs the question, do we care what their politics are? Or is it enough to say, yeah, we all have different viewpoints, let's just focus on having software that works? That was distros. Now, the topic of the conversation centered itself around the idea of the FOSS software itself. So should it matter if the beliefs of the people making the software are equivalent to ours or not? Should we create these parallel economies? Should we only use software by people who agree with us? That was really the crux of the argument. And so I identified 4 basic key points here in this discussion. The first factor is some free and open source people want a model, quote unquote free and open source people, because it's not really free and open source. They want a model where they can release software for free, as in dollars, but not necessarily under a free license, because they would like to tell people who do not have their beliefs, you can't use this software. So we are a group of coders and we are Christian coders, and we do not want anybody to use this who does not adhere to the Christian mindset. Now, the reality is, I do not really know of any Christians that do that, but I have seen people on the other side of the aisle wanting to create software and tell people you shouldn't be allowed to use this for any reason we tend to disagree with. And that really is the first point of the question. Now, the problem is that immediately means your software is no longer free software, because that goes completely against the idea of what free software actually means. And so that first point, we do not care. And once you start caring and saying you can't use this software because you have viewpoints different than us, we no longer have free software. So that's obviously the first point of the question. Do we really want to have software under that generalized approach? Okay. Now, on the flip side of the coin, should we as software consumers, should we use software from people that we disagree with? And that was what the other part of the philosophy was. So is using the software, here's the first point, the first question. Is using such software, is that using the software in endorsement of the ideas behind the software? So if, for example, software A happens to be written by people who do not like capitalism, and they write their software, and on their spare times are going to communist manifesto joints preaching about the dangers of capitalism, is using that software an endorsement of their political view? That's a question. Is it? Well, if you're using it to further their cause, possibly. If you're using it because it functionally works, probably not. I would wager that a number of people may not even be aware of the political views of most of the people who write their software. I certainly don't. I don't really care to seek out what your viewpoints are if you're releasing a software package and we're just saying, hey, let's make a software package that simply works. All right, so the next question we have to ask when we're dealing with this issue is who contributes to that software? You know, as free and open source guys, we have to reconcile with the fact that Google, Facebook, and Microsoft all contribute to the Linux kernel. If we're going to be so anal retentive to say anything that touches the viewpoints I don't agree with, well, we may as well just pick up some stones from this trail here and start chiseling them on them with harder stones, because everything in our world is built upon by people that we may disagree with. The foundations of the country itself is built upon by people we may disagree with. I mean, the nation itself was not built explicitly as a Christian nation. It was built by a group of people who were Christians, but it was also built by a group of people who were not. Thomas Jefferson was an atheist. He did not believe in God. I think Benjamin Franklin was as well. Okay, George Washington was a Christian. There was this early debate about the religion, and these guys, they believed in the freedom of religion because it freed you to not be forced to adhere to specific religious tenets. The problem that we have with that, of course, is that as we carried forth our nation, some of the people held views you will agree with, some of the people held views you would disagree with. Okay? And it doesn't matter whether you are the atheist side or whether you are the Christian side, because there were atheists involved, there were Christians involved. What are you going to do? Have nothing to do with the country? Because the founders didn't 100% agree with you. That is the point about the contributions. And then number 4, this raises the question of the parallel economy. This is something we hear talked about more frequently recently, and in reality, the parallel economy might be the direction we might have to go towards. Although I caution that the parallel economy is something we should not drive to as the first thing. We should try and get along. We should try to have conversations. The problem is we have to come to the table with rational conversations. And if my rational conversation says maybe a child should not consent to X, Y, or Z because they're a child, and you simply scream that I'm just a hate monger, you're the one in the wrong, not me. Because I want to have a rational conversation. You want to declare your opposition hate. That's a problem. And so we create this parallel economy. The problem with the parallel economy is it isolates everything into a separate bubble. And the one thing that has destroyed the American church than anything is creating a parallel economy within itself. Because we are not designed to be merely contemplatives in our own spiritual bubble somewhere. We are, by the nature of our faith, commanded to be contemplatives in a chaotic world. We are meant to engage with the world. We are meant to engage with society. We are meant to contribute. We are meant to work side by side with people who do not have beliefs as the same as ours. Not to mention in the Christian economy specifically, I'm not sure if you've looked at the entertainment. It sucks. Christian content, Christian entertainment, by and large, is pretty horrendous. Now, that's Christian. Can we do a parallel economy? Well, that's sort of what free and open source is able to do in a way, although it should be able to do it without getting involved in all the politics. So if you come out and suggest, you know what, we want to create a parallel economy because I want it to do absolutely nothing to do with a person I disagree with, that raises a lot of problems because we can't agree on anything. We can't even agree to disagree. And that is the fundamental problem. So in my ultimate principle here, do I really think that we should have absolutely nothing to do with any software that is written by people I tend to disagree with? That's a good question. Here's my basic solution. My basic solution is this. As long as you're not going to throw your politics, whatever they are, in my face, I don't care what your views are. If you say, I agree with Jesus Christ, or I agree with Mao Zedong, okay? I don't care as long as you're not shoving that in my face. Now, I am going to be a little bit more lenient towards certain causes than others, but in reality, I don't want to see any of them shoved in my face unless I'm explicitly looking for something from that perspective. I'm explicitly looking for Bible study software. Yeah, it's probably better it's written by the Christians. We have Bible Time, we have Xiphos, we have other great tools in the Linux to do those things. So in that case, it doesn't matter as much. But if we're talking about a general principle, a word processor, a media player, some other piece of software, or the distribution itself, as long as you're not putting your politics front and center, when I boot it up, I see a rainbow flag, I don't care what your political views are. They are irrelevant to me. As long as your software is built on a meritocratic core, meaning that the people who build it know what they're doing and are doing a good job. So we have a highly functional and highly secure software package to work with. That is ultimately the principle. Then, of course, your second principle is, as long as that software package is free. If it's free and open source, that is the ultimate thing to keep the economy going, regardless of your individual politics. It should not make any difference one way or the other. So there are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down below.
Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.